Hello. I just wanted to go over some of the basics in the crop tool because I've had a couple of messages the last few days, and I thought this would be a kind of useful way to do it. For those already familiar, just I might as well let you know about a new feature first. It's called Focus Blur, and it allows you to put kind of basically what's like a lens blur on an image, which can be quite nice for making icons stand out more. Or if an image is really gritty and you want to soften it slightly, using a tiny value like zero point 0.1 can be just the trick. But I quite like it for busier wallpapers. So I still want it on the screen, but I still want to be able to find whatever I kind of want easily. So actually quite nice for pattern wallpapers too, actually. Um, so now that that's out of the way, a little bit of an overview of the settings. I'm not going to do a deep dive. This is supposed to be accessible. My background's in photography, which is why there are so many settings, but it's important that it's easy to use. So when you launch in, you'll probably have seen that it defaults to the screen ratio of the monitor you're on. So if you have multiple screens, you can just move it around different screens and hit Find My Screen Ratio on a given screen. You can obviously pick from the list as well. There are the image adjustments. Some of them are very familiar, obviously. Brightness, contrast. Saturation is basically the amount of color level. Now, where things are people are less familiar, probably the next one that people would know quite well is vignette, which I always struggle to pronounce. You can see the effect of a black edge and a white edge there. I'm going to hit reset adjustments here to bring adjustments back to 0. Hue, it's a less common setting that people who use Photoshop and the like would know it more in Affinity Photo, but it can be quite nice for quite alien-esque type looks. Black level is you're defining effectively what the level of the blacks in the darkest part of the image and shifting the whole image as a result. So you can get quite a low contrast look. If you add low contrast with a bit of film grain, it can give kind of a slightly retro, so a black level of a minus value and film grain up. It's kind of a nice retro feel. You've got red, green, and blue, which adjusts separately the red, green, and blue channels. As I'm sure we all know, red, green, and blue together make white light. It's more complicated than that, with obviously other colors involved in the visual spectrum, but basically red, green, blue. Now, what's interesting, if you bring your saturation down to 0, you can still adjust these to affect how the black and white conversion works. You'll find that in a lot of pro image editors, but not in most simple photo editing apps. So it's just a nice way to really tweak how a black and white image looks. And then combined with film grain can be really effective. Some of them are quite obvious, like I've got this little flip control, flip vertical, and the film grain, I think we've mentioned a couple of times, quite high is obviously very noisy, but again, it can be for images which maybe you want something to look more analog. Increasing that can be quite nice. Next thing to talk about is slightly more in the weeds. There are the less commonly used options, and I'm going to start from the top again. Freeform crop. Effectively, if your monitor isn't detected or you're wanting to do something manual entirely for just something you maybe want to cut out and put in another image, you can just do what you want here. But it's not often as used as much. Even from my analytics, I can see people don't use it that much, but it is there for those who want it. You can toggle the orientation of the crop, effectively reversing the aspect ratio. So the image isn't changing, but the orientation is. So in other words, if I wanted a crop that will fit in my monitor that's vertical, I could do that. However, if you turn your monitor vertical and hit detect, find my screen ratio, it's going to pick it up automatically. But this just allows you a bit more flex for maybe having, say you were doing a pattern image on a vertical screen. It could be quite nice to give you extra pixels to play with in height. So again, it's really, if you don't really know what I mean, then you really don't need to worry about it. People with multiple monitors and vertical monitors will probably get why this is more useful to them. The next thing that's probably good to talk about is probably presets, which there are some built-in ones which are simply combinations of these sliders. And all of them can be achieved. And they're combinations. No one preset is going to work for every image. Some of them are going to look horrific. That looks horrific. Um, but with another image, it might look nice. But they're starting points. Think of it that way, and you can work from there. And I can hit set adjustments there again. I note, by the way, I've intentionally left focus blur out of the presets because it's not really something that belongs in them. The reset adjustments figure will zero it, but it is not included in the presets. If you're downloading multiple crops, say for argument's sake, you've got multiple screens, you move the browser and you want to get a crop, and you want to move to another screen and get another crop, you can actually queue them. So if I do that and hit queue crop, total queued 1, and if I do 5.4 for argument's sake, or I could move it to a different screen and find my screen ratio and hit queue crop, crop Q2. I'm hoping the video shows this little JavaScript pop up, and then download all Q crops, and it will give you a zip file which has the crops helpfully called crops.zip, and I hit cancel on that because I don't need to download it. A couple of other things to mention. JPEG ping. I get questions all the time why I default to JPEG. Windows 10 and 11 have a long-standing, incredibly annoying bug for high-resolution images, especially the 32:9:7680 by 2160, where sometimes a PNG will display as entirely black. So for that reason, it defaults to JPEG at a really high-quality setting. So realistically, you're not going to notice this an issue. You can try download, switch to PNG and save, but if you have that issue, know that that's why. Another thing, and I wanted to show you here, and this is really, most people won't need this. Say for argument's sake, I want this. So I've set, my screen at home is 3840 by 1600. So, and you'll see that ratio is 12:5. Now, say for argument's sake, this area that I'm picking is actually less than my screen res, and it wouldn't look great. It was slightly blurry, probably not too bad. But just say I wanted to save this image with a width that matches my monitor width. I can hit width override, and you can pick basically the common horizontal values. So I'm going to put 3840 and then hit download, and then the actual image I get from this crop will actually be an upscale 3840 by 1600. It will be slightly soft, but I just want the option there for people who want to have the option, because it might be that you've only gone in a little bit and beyond the native res of your monitor, and you wanted to stretch it slightly, and you know it's going to be basically imperceptible. Quite frankly, your operating system will scale it anyway, but sometimes it's better to do it at this point, or just download that, or just do it in Photoshop later, or so you don't have to do it within my crop tool at all. And then in the weeds, within the weeds, a couple of things here. The GPU acceleration is enabled by default now. It falls back if your browser doesn't support it. I haven't had a single complaint about this setting, so I'll probably take beta off, and I may actually just remove it entirely because I've not had any people had issues with it, thankfully. This is experimental. It's probably not going to advance much more in its current form. There will be more news later on, potentially about something I'm doing which connects and involves this. But this effectively is for making videos that are handy for OLED screens, which you can use third-party software to put as a video background of your windows that moves slightly and prevents screen burn. So there's different types of movement here which have really fancy names that I didn't come up with. Lizards or elliptical or circular or whatever, sine, obviously sine, cosine, all that jazz. It's fun. If you want to really see what they do, I suggest actually, like for instance, pick the lizard Jew, and you could put, for instance, this figure up to 4, which is a gross increase, but it will show you pretty clearly what happens. And you hit save wallpaper, it'll seem like nothing's happening, and depending on how fast your machine is, a minute later you get a download pop-up. You can hit F12 to see your console. This, as I said, is experimental, and it's, you know, it may not remain on the site in the long term, and may move to another connected thing. So finally, this feature, well, two features here. There's image palette. It's kind of a reference. If you make an adjustment to your color settings, and you'll see the palette, it actually adjusts in real time. So you have your, so if you are pairing something else, you can get the palette of your image, which can be nice if you're maybe setting up your LED lights. And that's essentially the main reason for this. And lastly, another experimental thing, which I really don't know how much use it gets. It's a minimal Windows theme downloader, which effectively allows you to adjust some of the common settings within Windows themes. There are more, but they don't work reliably. It can be tricky because it depends on your own Windows setup. It can be tricky to predict exactly how it's going to work. So it's really for those who really want to experiment with it. And you can always go into your themes within settings in Windows and hit one of the default themes to undo any changes you make. But yeah, hopefully this video has been useful, and I will chat to you soon.